Welcome to True News 365. Look at TrueNews365.com for more podcasts, videos, blogs, and commentary from a Christian and biblical worldview perspective. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is True News 365. Thanks for joining me once again. Today I have another one for you. This is dedicated once again to the brothers and the sisters, okay, on this question, has the Bible been corrupted? Okay, so this is one that many Christians might not have run into, but there might have come a time when you're speaking to another Christian, a non-believer, or even a Muslim, and the issue of biblical corruption will come up. And this is one of their main claims against Christianity, against the Bible. And this has to be the most infantile and ridiculous. And I have to hold back my words on this because, I mean, it's really, really bad. The fact that people use this argument of corruption, and you're going to see why. And so I'm doing a little bit of study on the research and looking into stuff myself. I've never been an apologist against the Muslim faith or anything like that. I still don't consider myself an apologist against it, but I will point I will point fingers and point people towards more resources. And for that, I've created a playlist on my YouTube that will get into looking, if you want to look more into this, you want to delve deeper into this, but there's still general knowledge and general questions that will get you going in the right direction. So that's my intention here, to equip the brothers and the sisters on this. And since this issue is always coming up against skeptics and against those people who call themselves Muslims, that's why I want to point. And so this is what's been going around, and this is what I've dug up myself over some time in this. And Muslims always make this unfounded claim, but they can never answer the question how or when and where the Bible was corrupted. How was it done? How was it corrupted? When was it corrupted? And where? Okay, because they tend to go everywhere. Okay, they still quote from the Bible all the time, and at their convenience when it suits them, or to attack the Bible, or to attack Christianity. The only verses they accept are neutral verses, or when they want to argue on behalf of their religion. But everything and anything that points to a Christian understanding within the Bible, they conveniently say is corrupted. Okay? So ask them if the Bible was corrupted either before the writing of the Quran, which was in the 7th century, the 600s, or after the 7th century, after the 600s. Okay, if the Bible was corrupted before the Quran, their God, who they call Allah, was leading them to a corrupted book, when in many places in the Quran, Allah instructs the Muslim to seek out the information from the people of the book, which refers to the Bible, refers to Christians, right? So there's a number of places that instructs them to seek out the wisdom, the understanding. You find that in Surah, in the 4th chapter. So you see it in Surah 4, the 4th chapter. Surah 5, it says, "Go back to that which God has given you, for they are signs for you." Okay? He says that God has given to you the New Testament, the Torah. Also in Surah 10 and Surah 21, Surah 29. These are chapters. Surahs mean chapters. Okay, so you got all of these say don't argue with the Christians because we've been given the New Testament and the Old Testament Torah as a sign for the Muslim. All right, that's why they have the need to quote the Bible and the New Testament. They can't abandon the New Testament because their Quran is tied to the New Testament. So they have to have a love and hate. Okay, because the problem is with them is that the Quran, if the Bible is true, if the Quran is true, then the Bible is true, and if the Bible is true, then the Quran is false, because the Bible will contradict what's being stated in the Quran. Okay, so you also have in Surah 29 says don't argue with the Christians because we've been given the New Testament and the Old Testament Torah as a sign to Muslims. Surah 10, you got Surah 21. Why would Allah be instructing them to go back to a book which was corrupted before the times of those same instructions? Why would Allah allow corruption of the New Testament and the Torah at all? Why would he allow it in any situation? Especially if he expects from his very instruction within the Quran to depend upon the New Testament and the Torah. Okay, these are huge inconsistencies. If it was supposedly corrupted after the days of Muhammad, is a whole different problem. Okay, so if supposedly the Bible was corrupted before the days of Muhammad, okay, you've got the very text of the Quran which contradicts what they're saying. And it's obvious. If the Bible was corrupted after the 7th century, the times of Muhammad, then you're going to have to deal with the huge source of New Testament manuscripts that predate Muhammad. Okay? You're going to have to deal with all those manuscripts, and there are a lot of them, of the Christian manuscripts. We have over 230 manuscripts that predate the 7th century, and that's more than anything from the time of ancient antiquity regardless. Okay? We have at least at least four New Testament manuscripts. I always have a problem. Sinaiticus, the manuscript Sinaiticus, and Alexandrius, Chester Beatty, John Rylands. These manuscripts are all existed before Muhammad. So if corruption happened after Muhammad in the 7th century, then that means that someone would have had to gone back to all 24,000 New Testament manuscripts, including the approximate 230 that I just mentioned that predate Muhammad, and change, alter every single one of them. They would have to have hid the evidence of those alterations, okay, including 1,500 translations that are all found in like 10 or 11 different languages. That would also have to be altered to match all the other ones that have been altered. And they have to do it so that no one could ever notice the physical changes in the evidence of the alterations. All right? This is what would have had to happen. So how unlikely is that to have happened? It's impossible. There are also approximately 2,100 writings of liturgy or teachings within the churches over the years, which are recorded and written teachings from the churches in history that quote scripture. They quote the Bible. These also have had to been altered even before they were discovered. Okay? That's 2,100 teachings that they find that people have written and wrote down in their studies within their respective churches. Then we have the early church fathers who historically wrote concerning Scripture and quoted so much from the Bible that the volume of their quotes alone completely cover the entirety of the New Testament. And these quotes date as far back to the first century. All right, welcome back. Where were we? Yes, we were talking about the quotes that number to approximately 86,000 scripture quotations from the early church fathers. Okay, that's approximately 3,600 of those scripture quotations from the early church fathers predate the 4th century. Okay, the 300s. That's way before Muhammad. Okay, and even within those 36,000 quotations from the early church fathers alone cover the whole 27 books of the New Testament, just within their quotes. And this predates Muhammad. Okay, those had to have been altered as well, because those are going to match with all the other ones that we were talking about before, not including the ones that are the later dates. Okay, the early church fathers started what we're still doing today, which is responding to error and controversy. But the most valuable thing is that when something is written and published, it's recorded in time, and we can go back to it and date it to see what's going on at the time of the controversy. Facts and truth can come out of knowing who was saying what, when, and where. So the evidence against New Testament corruption is huge. Okay, and there's no way they can make their case with this much volume of material that predates Muhammad's time by about 300 years, 3 centuries, to make the claim about biblical corruption. You would have to have a demonic army of invisible revisionists who go in all parts of the world at various times in history to tamper with every single one of those hundreds of texts from around the world, make changes, cover yourself and your work, align them to all match with those changes, and do all that without anyone noticing the physical evidence of what they've done. Okay? It's ludicrous. It's absurdity and Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus clownery all day, every day, to even suggest this. And yet that's one of their main arguments against Christianity and against the Bible. Are we being real here or what? What's going on? Is it time to grow up yet? No? Okay? It's a very stubbornly ignorant claim that can only survive, and only has survived, among those who choose to go against volumes of evidence against it. Only if you argue like a stubborn child can you keep with this claim, and everyone can see it. Okay, the common sense is through the roof. You could see it. Okay, it's just a really bad claim. When all else fails, and believe me, it has, you can threaten, you can kill the ones who oppose and call truth. You can call it blasphemy, you can call it hate, you could stomp and get angry, threaten and kill in order to silence. We've seen this before. This is the power of false religion and mind and people control through tradition, through the years, through the centuries. It's a dangerous and a dark thing. Okay, I don't need to say more about this, but this is how deceptions are. Okay? So Christian, every time you come across that absurd claim of Bible corruption, you now know how to answer these ridiculous and unfounded claims. Okay? Like I said before, I have a playlist on my YouTube. Okay, True News 365. Look me up, and it's called Truth versus Skeptics. And I've been collecting a number of things to study, things to consider regarding these false claims and the character and the inconsistencies. You know, this is stuff that has been kept under wraps and in tradition and thickness of tradition and control for hundreds and hundreds of years, where people were not able to, squeeze the fruit, to check the fruit, to inspect, to study for themselves, to look into themselves. They were not able to do that. So this information is being exposed in places where you can do that. And by way of the explosion of the internet and the access to information and the ability to debate openly and honestly, the light is being shined. But we know that truth, or rather lies, do not need consistency. Lies do not need peace. Lies do not need to be honest. Okay? To scrutiny. It cannot happen where there's control, where there's deception, where there's totalitarianism, where there's anything that's forced, where there's no free will. You cannot scrutinize, you cannot measure, you cannot, these things cannot be done for yourself. Okay, and I've said before, in certain circles in our circles, usually what happens is that if you have a gripe against Western understanding, Western thought, against Christianity, against the establishment, then what happens is that you can go in this route, not because it makes sense, not because it's logical, not because it's scholarly, you have a scholarly understanding of these things, but because you have a gripe with the establishment, with Christianity as a whole. Okay? And so then you could fall into these things. In the East, people have had hundreds of years of tradition to keep them in this. It's integrated into the laws. It's integrated into every facet of every crack and crevice of their culture, of their respective cultures, right? So that's completely understandable. So yeah, so that's all I have for today. Listen back to these facts, hold them for yourself, point them to others, share if you can, if you think that this is interesting and people can understand these things. This I've received, and I continue moving it forward, because I think we need to know these things and equip ourselves as brothers along with the brethren. Okay, so thanks for listening, and until next time, God bless.
Anchor.fm/DRU News 365.